My fellow Guardians, what is going on, y'all? Your dude Sly here, back at it with part 3 of my Garden of Salvation raid guides. Now in part 2, we entered the undergrowth and had to hold off the 4 plates in order to open up the middle and then protect the central totem from Vex sacrifices. In this video, however, we're moving on to the next encounter, which starts at the exact same place the last one ended, but this time we're moving into our first real boss encounter within the Garden of Salvation raid, a boss called the Consecrated Mind, the giant harpy you chased through the very first encounter. Everything you have learned thus far will come into play here, plus 2 brand new mechanics, one of which is crucial for the final boss encounter, so knowing how this fight works will help you out tremendously for the end. So first things first, guys, let's talk about team composition, your weapons, and then let's learn the map. Then we'll get into mechanics, things to look for, and finally set all of it into motion. So for team comp, you want to start trying to get into the swing of using buffs. Warlocks run Well of Radiance and try to have 2 wells if at all possible. If you have multiple Warlocks, then the rest can run Nova for easy ad clearing. Hunters run either Golden Gun with Nighthawk or Tether. One of each would actually work best, but having 2 Nighthawks also works out just fine. A Tether can help save the day within this encounter, which we'll talk about soon. As for Titans, Sentinel pretty much run for the entire raid. The ability to use your shield to create orbs as well as plop down a weapons bubble is just pretty awesome, so Titans run Sentinel. However, if you do not have a Tether or a Warlock well, then have 1 Titan run Melting Point for a little extra damage. Weapons for this encounter are similar to the weapons going to be used for the final boss. Izanagi's Burden with the Catalyst completed seems to be DPS king right now, so run that with Recluse and a grenade launcher with spike grenades. If you do not have Izanagi's, then Whisper is also a perfectly fine alternative, and in some situations just as good as Izanagi's without the Catalyst. Since I brought over my imported OG Xbox characters instead of my up-to-date PC characters, my cross-save account did not have any weapons from Black Armory forward. So for me, it was my trusty hand cannon with a retold tail and a whisper, and even with lower class loadout, there was still times I was top of the board for damage. So don't worry about not having Izanagi's for this encounter, as Consecrated Mind is not that hard of an encounter once you know what to do. Void shotguns work very well here because of certain minotaurs you have to take down, which we'll talk about next. Now if you don't have Whisper, then number 1, you should start working on it ASAP, and 2, you can go ahead and use Darcy as a decent alternative. If that is also something your teammates are missing, then look for a high impact sniper with firing line and 4th time's a charm. So now let's move to learning the map and plotting out the area. In this middle section, we are located pretty much directly in the center of a diamond shaped map. Remember the last encounter, how the plates were situated from one another? So diagonally across from each other will be the same plates we used in the last encounter. They have names like hedges, underbrush, etc. It'll show you at the very top left of your screen once you actually start running down the corridors. In between these corridors are smaller hallways, including where a team has to follow the boss and learn a new boss mechanic. There are 4 of these as well, and one of them has rotating platforms to try and trip you up. So just be aware of that. These smaller hallways have death pits below them. So just be careful when you're following the boss. Okay, so now that we are all sorted out, let's talk about these new additions to the raid mechanics. Now, we won't be using Tether for this encounter, but we will still be utilizing the Enlightenment Buff to get rid of immunity shields. Now, to get this buff, we have to play a little bit of PvE Gambit. Every once in a while, a yellow bar minotaur will rush into the middle. When it's killed, it will drop 5 motes. You have to deposit these motes into one of these Vex totems. That then gives you the ability to take away the immunity shields via the Enlightenment Buff. Once the encounter starts, you have to look down these long corridors and look for a bright pillar shooting up into the sky. This is an indicator of where an active totem is, and also where we have to go to defend it. Once a player picks up all 5 motes, and make sure you pick up all 5 of them, don't split them up between anybody else. One player picks up all 5 motes every single time. Once you have them, book it down to the active totem, and then bank the motes on that totem to gain the Enlightenment Buff. And then do nothing but keep ads from sacrificing. We'll take this further in just a little bit. Next, let's talk about the new boss mechanic. So the Consecrated Mind will be laying out these voltaic charges just like it did in the very first encounter within this raid. Now we're still splitting up into 2 teams of 3. 3 will start out on boss, 3 will be totems. So basically we use the terms boss team and totems team. Even though we all have to switch, it's just easy to keep track of. The 3 that are on boss in the very beginning have to follow it anywhere it goes. While you're waiting, go ahead and shoot ads and try to help out the other team by taking shots at their Minotaur. Once the boss moves, make sure everyone on your team knows that it is leaving. You need to have 3 people at the ready for what comes next. So make your way to where the boss stops, and just like the first encounter, someone will have to pick up the voltaic charge first, second, and then third. This encounter is sort of like a mini Riven. The person who takes the charge will need to be right in the middle, then the other 2 players on the teammate's left and the teammate's right. However, be sure the 2 on the left and right stay clear of that charge, because it can detonate and then engulf more than one person, which will screw everything up. So let the player take the buff and then move to their sides. What's going to happen here is the Harpy will throw out 3 of its limbs or fins, whatever you want to call it. Each fin will have 2 red lights, or we call them eyes. One eye is closer to his middle large eye, and the other one on the end of its fin. These are labeled as inner or outer eyes. The player receiving the voltaic charge is the only one who can see which eyes are glowing and which ones need to be shot. The players on the left and right will see all of the eyes glowing. So shoot the eyes based on what your middle guy is calling out. If it's inner, you need to shoot the one closest to the inner side of his eye. If it's the outer eye, of course you shoot the one at the end of the fin. If you do it correctly, the boss gets stunned, and then we move on. Now, just like in the very first encounter, a player can only take a voltaic charge 1 time. So now we have to switch. So since I took the very first charge, I now switch with one of my teammates. Now he is the one to take the charge and make the callouts. He is now the guy in the middle. The player in the middle will always be the one who shoots the top fin. If you're to the left of your center teammate, then you of course take his left eyes. If you're to the right, you take the right eyes. Keep following the boss, trading off until all 3 of you have the voltaic charge. Once this happens, the 2 teams of 3 will need to switch. The boss team now becomes the totem team, and the totem team will now take the boss. Totems, guys, is super easy. It's just all it is a simple relay race. You keep trading off with your teammates who is protecting their totem while constantly running back, killing ads and minotaurs, picking up motes to deposit them. The goal here is to deposit 30 motes inside the totem. Once 30's been deposited, it's time for the DPS phase. The only hiccup here is when the switch happens, because the totem team will have 1 person guarding. He or she will not be able to make it to the very first eye call out because they're so far away. So that means 1 person who was on the initial boss team needs to stay and shoot the eyes 1 more time. Now they cannot take the voltaic charge and call it out because they already have one, but you can fill in just by simply shooting a left or right side eye. By the time the boss moves to a second location, the teams will be back to normal, and usually after the second call out from Team 2, it's going to be damage time. The Consecrated Mind will come to the pillar where the motes have been deposited, so everyone needs to book it as fast as possible to this totem. It starts out as a mad dash to destroy as many eyes as possible. If you do not shoot all of them out in time, it wipes the team. Go ahead and put down a Warlock well. This will make sure the eyes explode much faster. Once all of the red eyes are gone, the middle of the Harpy will open up to expose its core, and now it's time for snipers. Shoot as much as possible until the Harpy starts to back up to a certain point. The boss will end up throwing down one of those barriers to stop you from shooting and following it, so you have to walk forward as it's backing up and you're sniping. Once you walk forward to the inside of the corridor, the barrier will be behind you, so throw down another Warlock well and stand there for the rest of the damage phase, sniping as the boss keeps backing up. You have to walk forward only to bypass the barrier. Once you're sure that the wall is behind you, stop moving. That way other players won't be shooting the back of your head, or they'll be pushing you into you trying to walk, stuff like that. So stand there, damage as much as possible. If a Titan has a bubble, it's not a bad idea to grab weapons of light at the very beginning. Watch out for the Harpy's sick dance moves, and after a while, congrats my friend, that is 1 damage phase. The goal here is always going to be half health, but because of the moving and the walking, it doesn't always work out that way. Just do the best you can. There's nothing wrong with the 3 phase. Once the Harpy covers up its core, you are now back to the start, guys. Split into teams again, starting from the beginning. The only difference here is that there is 0 wait time from the damage phase to the eye callouts. The boss doesn't take its time the second time around. It heads directly down a hallway as soon as it gets back to the center, so you need to be on point in following it. Just do that a few more times and that's it, my friends. Once you get the callouts all synced up, it's actually a pretty enjoyable encounter. Nowhere near as complex as Riven, but Still kind of brings back a few flashbacks. So yeah, that's it, Guardians. As always, thank you all so much for watching and for supporting Sly Nation. If you're new to my channel, welcome, my friend. I hope you found this guide helpful and easy to follow. Subscribe for a lot more Destiny 2, Shadowkeep, and Garden of Salvation raid guides and videos. Spank the thumbs up, but only if you enjoyed yourself, and keep those red eyes open for more Shadowkeep videos coming out here soon, including Part 4, the final boss encounter, which is almost ready. I just need a few more viewpoints of different jobs to make it complete, and then it'll be finished. So, until then, this is your dude Sly, and I will see all you beautiful people next time.